So for doping in sport, that's pretty much just the use of performance enhancing drugs. So with using PEDs in sport, first topic we can talk about is like the fairness of it. Like, do you guys think it's fair? Like in terms of it allows like records to be broken and like certain uh benchmarks to be met, or is it kind of just not fair to the other athletes who are not on the PEDs?
Well, obviously, it's unfair if not everyone's allowed to be on PEDs. I feel like, I mean, if you let everyone be on PEDs, I feel like that's got to be like a separate league or something. But as far as like, if you break a record on PEDs, sure, that could be like a PED record, but you couldn't really compare the two, I feel like.
Yeah, just how they're kind of like separate. And then I feel like with the athletes who are also not taking them, like they are training their whole life for like this moment, and then just like when they get beat in a race or something, uh, they're getting beat by a person who's on drugs rather than a person who's clean. So I feel like that's, I don't know, it's not very fair to those athletes that are training their whole life, especially like for the Olympians, like when they are training for, I think it's like every 8 years is like the summer, and every eight is the Winter Olympics. So with that, yeah,
I
it's not
think it's
really
ever.
fair.
But yeah, I mean, I'd be cool with it if it was like they were separate, because then you could see like the limit to human potential and all, but they're just not comparable, I feel like.
hmm And then another topic we could talk about is like the harm that the PEDs do to the different athletes. So, for instance, there are different like doping classes that are characterized within performance enhancing drugs. Like one is the stimulants, and the effect on performance is that it makes athletes more alert and masks their fatigue when like extreme tiredness that's caused by physical activity. But the dangerous side effect would be like heart failure, and that the stimulants are addictive. So I don't know, it's kind of a spectrum, I guess, where they are going to be more alert with certain sports that they're playing, so that could cause better results. But at the same time, the dangerous side effects could be like heart failure, which I feel like is pretty detrimental to the athlete. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, with like the human body, the whole idea is like, as an athlete, or whatever, you kind of want to try to listen to your body. Then we have like these stimulants or whatever sort of the PEDs in you, like you were saying, how it kind of, may not let you fatigue as well. So it could just be, you could be overexhausting your muscles and stuff like that, be damaging it that way. Pretty much, I feel like it would be a lot more prone to maybe like an injury, kind of overexerting yourself. I feel like that probably ties into why you have a lot of heart problems because you're doing so much work so like that heart can't keep up, or um, just sort of the fact that you're not able to really listen to your body truly. You're letting some sort of outside force or a drug dictate what's going on inside you.
Plus, I'd say like PEDs, like they'll make your muscles grow sometimes faster than like your tendons and ligaments can like keep up with it. So you'll see a lot of people get like torn ligaments or tendons because they're taking steroids because their muscles are just getting too big for the rest of the body to keep up with at a normal pace. So I think that's another pretty serious side effect. And then you look at like people like Walter Payton or other guys who die at like the age of like 50 who they think took steroids. So it's just like, is that really worth it for athletics? I'd probably say no.
Yeah, like with that, like on that note about the steroids, like the anabolic agents or the steroids, they help the athletes like train harder and build muscle. So I feel like in the world of weightlifting, I feel like you said, if there's like two classes, one where you can be on performance enhancing drugs and one where you're not, that can be, I guess, beneficial for some athletes that literally want to just lift like the most weight. Like for one, uh, like is the harm worth it in the long run? Some athletes say that they accept like the years off their life because of all the time they're putting into their sport, that it can be beneficial to them and their happiness and just quality of life to break those records and to lift like the most weight. Which, what do you guys think about that with the people that accept those side effects?
I mean, I guess it's sort of their choice and an aspect. At least if it's not harming anybody else. If they know the repercussions, they know the sort of you know, I guess I don't know if they're able to understand the fact that like their happiness right now is only short term, but in the long run, they're probably not, like you said, going to be losing some years in their life. If that's the way they want to live their life, if it's sort of like the amount they're taking is a safe amount to where they're not overdoing it right away, so then their life is cut extremely short, then I guess that's sort of their preference and whatever the law states within whatever boundaries they're in, whatever state, country, whatever they're at.
Yeah, I don't think they should necessarily do that, but I mean, at the end of the day, if it's like within the law, like you can't really stop them. I would say it kind of goes back to the point though that if they are doing it and they choose to it, knowing like the problems that could come about it, like I would also say it's kind of unfair to just compare them to people who aren't doing it, because those people are working their whole life too, so you don't really want to, like, if they're not willing to go all the way and threaten their life, it's not really fair to them when people are willing to do that. So you just kind of have to separate the two, I feel like.
So another topic, I guess, that we talked about in class was the topic of sport ethic, and that's just defining like what it means to be a real athlete. And then in doing that, do you think they're like the two different sides of what it means to be an athlete? One is that there's the win at all cost mentality. You're taking risks, challenging limits, sacrificing for the game. And some athletes think that taking those risks involved taking the performance enhancing drugs. But on the other side, there's the whole topic about how it's like unnatural, dehumanizing, and how it's like it makes you like an irrelevant athlete. So it kind of like there's like the two sides with that, as the fans see sport as sure they're trying to win the games, which is really important to the fans, and the fans might not care about the side effects. But then the other side is that do the athletes that are taking the PEDs harm like the integrity of the sport? So what do you guys think about that?
I'd say sometimes it depends on the sport. Like, I guess I just think it's kind of like cheap if you're doing that. Like, if you feel like you have to get an edge, and the only way you can get that edge is through like boosting up your body in a way that someone else wouldn't be able to do, I think that does take away from the integrity. But then, like, if you're in a conference and everyone's on the same thing and everyone's willing to do that to their body, then I'd say that almost improves the sport, because then you're seeing what everyone's like on PEDs. But I think it goes back to if you're intermingling with people that aren't on PEDs, it just kind of it takes away from it.
So at like the global scale, when you talk about the different sports, like in the Olympics, where all the different countries are competing against each other, in order to like to sustain funding for the sports, you need to succeed. So, for example, like the Russians recently, they were tampering with the urine samples of the athletes, and this allowed them to get an advantage and win a lot of the gold, which helps provide a lot of money to their sport. And they are one of like the main hosts of the Olympics. So with that, I guess there's I guess it's kind of a difficult topic to talk about, just because there is the funding that you need for your sport to either keep it alive, and if you don't end up winning, then your sport can be like just taken off, I guess, or you're just like eliminated. So what do you guys think about that on like a global scale, where they kind of really need to win to support the funding, and whether PEDs like could be used for that.
The whole point of sports, I think, is competition, and if you can't hang with the competition the right way, then you shouldn't be in the sport anyways. So I
Hmm.
think that's kind of if you can't compete in the sport without enhancing yourself in a way that's not necessarily legal, then you shouldn't be playing the sport anyways.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Just like one of the sociologists, I know he talked about how people that violate the rules, they're lacking the moral character, intelligence, and sanity that the good, normal, and healthy people wouldn't be, and they wouldn't be so foolish to violate those rules. So I kind of agree with that. Like where if you want to compete, you might as well follow all the rules and then do that in order to win, rather than use the PEDs to kind of like
Yeah, and if
as
you
an
can't
edge.
do it as that, and you can't do that, then you shouldn't be at the highest level of sport.
Hmm. And then was looking at this. So what about at like the high levels of competition? So like for instance, in the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes he got hurt with his ankle. What would you say about him taking narcotics, which is a performance enhancing drug, to mask the pain or injury, uh, which which is one of the PDs that is illegal? Like what would you say about on that uh, specific like Super Bowl game? Like, would you think that's kind of fair that he can maybe use that just then he can keep playing, or do you think that he should honestly either play through that pain or have his backup take his spot?
I think with like high levels of competition, I think you're going to be fighting two angles on it. I mean, of course, you want to keep the integrity of the sport and stuff like that. But when you get to that high of a level and that much eyes on it, it turns into just entertainment then. So, as probably the National Football League themselves, they probably want Patrick Mahomes out there or whoever the athlete is that's competing in that sport to be out there as much as possible. So I feel like and probably as a consumer as well, you want to see that as well. So I guess whatever is in the legal bounds of the league, that should be allowed, I think. I don't really see a huge problem with that, but I can see why, some people do bend the rules or try to break the rules because, they're also, it's a sport, it's the base of it, but it's also when you get to that high of a level, it's just entertainment, it's consumers, it's money. And that's really the only, in that aspect of it, yes, the integrity of the sport's important, but to the big corporates and stuff like that, that's really all they care about, like the NFL and them. It's just having their best players out there in the biggest moments of the game. So,
Yeah, do you think that like in the playoffs or the Super Bowl, or there should be some kind of rules, I guess, if they're able to use like those narcotics to help keep their best athletes on the field? Like, do you think that the
I don't think so. I think it should just, I mean, whatever you have throughout the entire season, you should just keep the same baseline of rules, and whatever that limit to what drugs you can use, stuff like that. There should be, I mean, of course, like I said, everybody's eyes are on the Super Bowl and stuff like that. But I mean, there is just some injuries that are just so large that even some drugs can't even handle. I mean, then it's putting at risk of the athlete as well. So there's like that fine line to where if you want to drug this guy up, throw him back out there, and then Patrick Mahomes hurt his ankle. It turns out he can't support his knee as well or support his body as well, and he tears his ACL. He's out for the whole next season. So I think so that's why I think you need to have the same guidelines throughout the season, so you're not doing something and putting something new in somebody else's body in some of the biggest stages of the year. So.
And as far as like narcotics go and stuff, there's rules against them. I'd say kind of for a reason. Like there's a reason they're not legal in the sport, probably because they're pretty unhealthy for the athlete. So I think it just kind of goes back to player safety too. Like you don't want a player out there doped up and then something worse to happen because of the side effects of that drug.
hmm So overall, would you guys say that we're probably leaning towards against using performance enhancing drugs in sports?
I personally, yeah. Unless you're gonna do it like everyone's doing it on their own as a separate entity.
Okay.